Nouriel,
your
where
view of the
could you
world.
be?
And it's
I'll
not going
ask
to work.
both of you the same question.
Can you have blockchain systems
Nouriel.
that are private as
It's
opposed
not
to
about
public?
anarchy. It's about building better,
there may
more
be
trustworthy
private
systems.
applications of blockchain with private blockchain with a trustee.
Nouriel, basta.
Kim Jong has everything is 0.86. So the entire crypto land is more unequal in terms of income and wealth than North Korea. So you, Joe, and Vitalik are more unequal than Kim Jong. That's the situation right now. So whether you're looking at mining, whether you're looking at exchanges, whether you're looking at the decentralization and security, so all the solutions today go in the direction of scalability are going to send down the next day. So suppose you're a merchant and you want even to accept Bitcoin for payment of transaction. First you have to take your dollars, convert them into Bitcoin, and there's a transaction cost, takes you a day. Then you have to convert the Bitcoin into maybe another coin to buy that good and service. Then once you've done that, you have to convert back that other coin into dollar because you don't want to keep the Bitcoin or the other token because the value can go up 20% up or down. You're going to lose your profit margin. So anybody wants to use it for transaction as a huge market risk and is not using it. So it's not a unit of account, it's not a means of payment, it's not a stable store of value, it's not a currency. And there is no solution. 5 years ago, for a token, I have no idea of what's the relative price of two goods. What's the difference between 2 Denta coins and 3 dog coins? What's the relative price of that? It's totally confusing. Or even for similar goods, there is Denta coin number 1, number 2, number 3, number 10. So you create chaos. There is no price discovery system. And paradoxically, instead of going in this world where everything is efficient, low cost, you're going in a world literally of Flintstones, of barter. Because in order to buy any good, you have to essentially buy a token and then change the token with another token to buy another good. Might as well go back to Stone Age of barter because that's what tokenization is all about. It's totally inefficient. It's never going to work. It's just totally confusing.
Okay. So I agree.
Joe's going to simplify it. He's going to simplify it and agree with some things with you.
Good evening, everyone. This is Ivan Castano, aka Crypto Journal, with my second video. This time I'm going to be focusing on blockchain New York City, blockchain New York Week, and in particular on the Fluidity Summit, which began this afternoon. The highlight of that summit, I thought, in my opinion, was the very controversial, interesting, and funny, actually, humorous at points debate between Nouriel Roubini, the famous economist who actually predicted the housing crisis, and Joe Lubin, from the co-founder of Ethereum. As you can see in the images at the beginning of the video, Roubini made quite a few blasting accusations against cryptocurrencies. In fact, in the first video, when the moderator there has to blow up her whistle to make him calm down, he's talking about how blockchains are not private, and he's saying that blockchains are actually useless because a lot of corporations that will want to see their the balance sheets or income statements hidden are all of a sudden viewed by everybody because, as you know, the blockchain is an open ledger and it's an open source ledger where everybody can pretty much see every single transaction, which is immutable. He goes on to say that what's the point of having a blockchain, a widely viewable blockchain, that it should be private. And then Joe, at that particular moment, then counters that there are, and at this point, of course, many projects are looking to solve that situation. More interestingly, and perhaps more controversially, Roubini talked about how the whole concept of decentralization is just horse shit. Basically, he just said that the whole crypto system is centralized. He talked about the fact that there's a total concentration of wealth. He mentioned the Gini coefficient, which actually measures a nation's wealth distribution, income wealth distribution, according to his residents. And he said that the total concentration of wealth, he actually says that the Bitcoin and Ethereum community, excuse me, hold 0.88% of the wealth, compared to about 5% in the U.S. That's the Gini score in the U.S. and 0.86% in North Korea, where Kim Jong-un owns everything. So basically, he goes on to say that Vitalik Buterin and Joe, who are the co-founders of Ethereum, actually own more and have a bigger concentration of wealth than most of the planet. Probably true, a little bit exaggerated, but interesting remarks nonetheless. He goes on to say, Roubini goes on to say there's actual big concentration and centralization of the mining operation as well. He goes on to say that 25% of mining is controlled by Bitcoin, by some Bitcoin miners actually, and that is the case. 45% will be the case for Ethereum, saying that the top three coins control 60% of mining, and the top 5, 75% of mining. He says that exchanges are also further centralized. The 99% of all crypto transactions are occurring in centralized exchanges because there are just a very few. And then he talks about developers owning the coins and creating some sort of ownership mafia on those coins. Roubini's third and also most interesting point during the debate was the fact that cryptocurrencies are not really working currently as a method of payment. He goes on to say that right now for merchants using Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency is really not efficient, that they have to convert fiat to crypto and then crypto to crypto in the case of whether they have to convert Ethereum or Bitcoin or Litecoin, any of the other coin, and then buy back the fiat. He's saying that's just not a plausible way of doing things, that is not efficient, that it actually eats on their profit margins. The last thing he said was that this inefficient system actually harks back to the Flintstone Stone Age, in which things were bartered, similarly to the cartoon, to the Flintstones cartoon, that we're going back into the old ages with the system.
Centralized may be a bit of an exaggeration. I agree that the mining systems, the proof-of-work mining systems, are susceptible to centralization, especially in Bitcoin, but also partially in the Ethereum space. It's turned into a hardware arms race. Proof-of-stake, if you understand it well, will remedy many of the concerns with respect to centralization, with respect to wasted computation, especially with respect to wasted energy or electricity. Proof-of-stake will enable people to replace all of that hardware infrastructure, all of the waste with an economic bond, a security bond in a smart contract on the blockchain. So the barrier to entry to being a validator on Ethereum when we move to proof-of-stake, and that's going to happen this year for a hybrid version, will be vastly reduced. It will enable much greater decentralization of the ability to participate in these networks. So indeed significantly centralized. That's why we're here today. AirSwap is a tremendous protocol set of services that will enable peer-to-peer trustful atomic exchange where there is no counterparty risk. It'll enable one-to-many, many-to-many. It'll enable governance of these projects. It is true that Vitalik is a remarkable individual, but Vitalik doesn't really write the code. He has a laboratory, a Python laboratory, where he pioneers some ideas. There are 10 or so different implementations of the Ethereum client. They're all independent teams. They all fight with one another, sometimes warmly, sometimes less warmly. It's a set of protocols, just like the internet, that we're all writing in a remarkably decentralized space. It's open source. It's got lots of different actors. It's got core developers. It's got the Ethereum Foundation. It's got the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance, which is a group of 500 companies that are getting together in working groups around banking, insurance, healthcare, identity, telecommunications, automotive, etc. They are all building shared infrastructure for their particular ecosystem. So actors who don't know one another to be able to trust one another in various different kinds of transactions. We're running an event called Ethereal tomorrow and Saturday. We're going to be serving sushi at lunch tomorrow. And we know where the sushi is. The sushi's on an airplane right now. Internet itself has evolved in the different protocols, internet protocols, Web 1 protocols, Web 2 protocols, Web 3 protocols are coming. Web 3 is the decentralized World Wide Web. I argue that the internet is a profound invention that has transformed global society, but it's broken. We have built systems that have...
In his defense, Joe Lubin countered Roubini by first saying that, first actually acknowledging that yes, while the mining system or the mining system's proof of work approach is actually susceptible to centralization and has turned into an arms race, bitter arms race and competition between a lot of miners, that the proof of stake approach that Ethereum is going to be taking with a pilot project later on this year will solve the problem and will allow any validator to actually perform the consensus and the checks on the coin in a vastly reduced amount of time, and at the same time, discourage centralization, increase decentralization, and reduce income inequality. Another thing that he mentioned was that exchanges are not actually significantly centralized. They are significantly decentralized, with Uniswap being an example. Now, Uniswap was a big team during the conference. A lot of the executives were there promoting the decentralized ERC20 exchange, or Ethereum exchange. Lubin went on to say that it's a tremendous protocol and that it has a set of services that enables peer-to-peer trustful atomic exchange operations with very little counterparty risk. It's also enabling market makers to join the system, which is further increasing its viability. On the governance issue, Lubin said that developers, in the case of Ethereum, are actually not taking over the coin, that there are 10 different implementations in the S client, and that these are governed by independent teams that fight sometimes and sometimes get along. To conclude on that part, Lubin said that S is remarkably decentralized, that it's open source, and talked about the various industries in which it is now being beta tested. At the beginning of the conference, Roubini said, basically trashed the industry, saying that the revolution is not coming from the blockchain or cryptocurrencies, that the fintech revolution is actually coming more from a revolution of the payment system, credit allocation, insurance, and asset management, and that people are able to use, especially in emerging markets, are able to use PayPal, WeChat, and other applications to make their payments, and that this renders crypto completely unnecessary. That the fintech revolution is coming more from these applications that are allowing payments to be streamlined as opposed to from the blockchain. Lubin went on to say that he disagrees, that the blockchain is a next generation database where people who don't know each other, one another, unquote, can trust themselves in different kinds of transactions. Everything can be tracked, even the sushi that the Ethereum Foundation will be serving tomorrow during their Ethereal meeting. He talked about how that sushi is going to be tracked from the fishing all the way to the distribution, highlighting it as an example of the benefits and efficiencies of blockchain. Lubin went on to say that we are right now at the beginning of the Web3 protocols, that the internet so far has not actually included money and an identity, that it does not have a money and identity construct. which actually enables people to use that and to become efficient, to boost efficiencies through deciding their personal self-sovereignty and having a global payment system for goods and services. So that's pretty much it for the Fluid Summit and Blockchain Week, which is taking place in New York City. The one thing that I wanted to mention as well was other highlights about the conference, which actually had quite a few interesting debates, including people from AirSwap and looking even at the tokenization at art tokens, including Picasso's and Michelangelo's, and how those might be able to provide an incentive for artists and for collectors to buy art in the future. There were some interesting conferences. One of them included one by Erica Karp of the Cornerstone Capital, in which she talked about how the current financial system is not being sustainable enough to combat climate change. And there was also a talk by Michael Novogratz, a famous hedge fund manager, about the currency revolution. The conference continues tomorrow. It opens with the Crypto Creative Tech Week. There's going to be a symposium exploring blockchain's impact on creativity and the arts. The literature on the website reads that the symposium will feature entrepreneurs, developers, artists, curators, and creatives pioneering blockchain's impact on creativity and the arts. It asks everybody to come and join them for a very interesting discussion, as well as delectable refreshments and beverages as well. I probably won't be there to enjoy that, but I will be following the event remotely, so stay tuned for more updates tomorrow. That's basically it for now. Again, remember this is not financial advice, it's just my opinions about things that are going on in the crypto space. I will be talking about some interesting altcoins later this week, as well as financial ICOs, particularly related to crypto lending, which I think is a space that's going to do very well. If you like the video, please give me a like and subscribe. That helps me a lot. And I look forward to seeing you again here. Thanks very much.